I know teachers right now are into their 40s who are still paying college loans off.
The people that aren't in education complain about what we're not doing in education. You're like, all right, so the people that are doing cool stuff, you almost have borderline a moral obligation to say, all right, this is what I'm doing then.
Let me ask you a very quick question. Is it easier to get a passport than it is to substitute teach?
Yep. Like, be lazy. Well, if I'm training people to be teachers, be lazy. Yeah, shut up and let them do it.
There's two emotions that I straddle, right? Is hope and worry. So I'm worried to death about kids, but I'm super hopeful about the future.
Education wants the instant gratification. They want the weeds. They don't want the trees.
CTE is coming gangbusters for the traditional, practitioners who don't want to even entertain moving things around for the sake of efficacy.
Do we need as much time as we need to do school?
I mean, if you're asking a 14-year-old, they're going to tell you a weekend will be fine. But no, I want to challenge kids.
If you're about to listen to this podcast, buckle up.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Some punches thrown there, Alli, last week. I love Kristy. She does amazing work. She is a leader in what I would call, obviously, is work-based learning, but now I think, and we'll jump into it, is economic development in communities. But I digress. How are things going for you? What's happening?
Things are great. We're into August, and some people, they may not love August.
It's my birthday month. I love it.
Yeah, other people, there's a lot of newness in August, the excitement of going back to school and college, so there can be some like dread, for some people. And then excitement for others. So it can be like a mixed bag, right? Like I think August can be a mix of emotions. And I think that is a good thing to consider when working in education or the community or workplace, is like the season that you're in and like, what do you really need right now? Kristy does a really great job of breaking that down in the work that she does. And I think that this is just a good time of year to really ask yourself that question, and where, at different levels, right? Like you personally, your students, if you're in the classroom, your teachers, if you're an admin, school board leadership, if you're a community member, like what do you need right now to get crystal clear on like where you want to go in the next season? Because I just think that can eliminate a lot of the mixed bag feelings and get you excited about the season that you're in, if you're not dreading it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I like how you put that out there. Like, what do you need? And what do you really want to do, right? I think like in a new year, like it's like, what, break some rules. I go all the way back to, I don't know, a certain person named Jen who taught you some skydiving things. And she would say, right, be lazy. Like, so how can you have the community help teach your students? How can you get your students to help teach each other and themselves? So I was lucky enough to take a blended learning mod course that our school district puts out. We have blended learning where students don't have to come to class every day, and it's pretty innovative. It's something that a lot of schools don't do, but I would highly suggest. But you can do it within a traditional quote unquote system and like kind of give students area to learn or time to learn when they come in and do it that way. But this really taught me a lot. It was just 4 modules, and we were talking about PD and different things like that on a couple of posts back in the day, and it really allowed and modeled actually like blended learning in this course, allowed us as educators to really figure out how can we utilize the time frames and have students own their own learning in whatever subject. And what we're doing right now in this series is really starting to connect what our young professionals have said about their journey from basically, high school on through college if they went, or their learning experiences wherever they went, and how to bridge those gaps. And we're really leaning into kind of like what Kristy brings to the table with Edu Vitality is how can we do this within an economic development like look of a community. That learning it cannot, and one of the things I'll just say it right now is what she said, cannot be just contained. It can't be contained. It is in a lot of sense, but how do we look at different ways to bring in community members, entities, leaders, whatever, to work within our school and vice versa? How can we get students out? And I think a new start to a school year is a great place to just challenge yourself to start small and to really start to build a relationship with something in your community under the curriculum, I don't know, umbrella of whatever you're teaching, but to really kind of reach out and do that. And I've done it so many times, and it has never I completely failed. There's been little failures within, but it has never, ever, every student that I've worked with, every community member loved it. And yes, there's growth opportunities, but I highly suggest going back to last week's and starting with Kristy, because we've got a lot of people here who are connecting communities together in learning, and no BS. This isn't checkbox stuff. So.
No, that's what we had to have Kristy on the podcast.
Yep.
Was when we were doing this summer series and we were hearing our former students who are now in their early to mid 20s discuss kind of like what they feel like they missed out on. A lot of it was connection and alignment and just feeling like underprepared for where they're at now. Mm-hmm. And that may be true or not, right? But how you feel really matters. Like I always hold on to this phrase, like people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And that's very true in education. Like the culture of a school and how it makes you feel, and the culture of a community and how it makes you feel, and is there investment, is there vitality like in the spaces that you're in, and that can have a ripple effect for many, many, many years. And I think when you're facing challenges in education, in the school that you're at, in the community that you're at, you need someone like Kristy who will, what she's brilliant at is finding that starting point to move forward, right? Like so often we can get stuck in analysis paralysis. Like there's so much information, there's so many options, there's so many things we could do. Like, so then you don't do any of it because it's like the cereal aisle and there's, hundreds of options, and you're like, I don't know what I'm in the mood for, what I'm going to be in the mood for tomorrow. Like, and it's going to change because I've got all of these choices. Fun fact about me, I really love Aldi because it's less choices. I don't like the cereal aisle at traditional grocery stores because there are too many choices. Like, you get stuck and then you like overanalyze a decision that does not need to be complicated. And that can happen too easily in education. And so it's like, whenever you or I talk to Kristy, like we're both like, we both love Kristy and the work that she does. And there's so much more besides like what you hear on the podcast. Like she's so good at what she does in the expedient, right? Where she opened with, she feels like she's like that old library system where you have everything cataloged. You need someone like that in real time to work through, what you think is important versus she's going to help you make a decision to move forward. Because just by making that decision and like moving forward, you'll know pretty quickly whether or not that was the lowest hanging fruit, but you didn't spend 6 months to a year not doing anything. And that is, I think, we can have all the talking tours, and oh man, I just remember that was like the hot thing when I was starting teaching, is all these school districts, they want to do these like listening and talking tours, and then like nothing, like from my perspective, nothing came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk all we want about the changes that we seek, but then like who is implementing the action? And to Kristy's like major point is like, you have businesses that want people and schools that want like projects. So just bring them together. Like both are like need each other. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems so simple. And it's just getting a translator like Kristy to talk business, to talk education, and get them to talk to each other in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. She is, I like how she used the translator there, like you said, like, because I feel like, a person like that is somebody who understands that the, the, I guess the action part and the research part. And if you overanalyze or you immediately react and not respond, like she's a very good person to really balance those two. So, like you said, you're not sitting around for 2 years thinking about something, but you're also not just jumping in blind to something. She's a very good balance of that. And and those people like really are found within school systems. And if you understand how you can get those together, it's funny because my colleague and we're co-coordinators, and I'll give him a shout out, Brett Thompson. Like he is a planner, like he is very like articulate in dotting I's and crossing T's, and I am like, let's go try it, let's go try it, and we work very well together because we realize that's who we are. And I usually scale back my jump in, all in real quick. And he sometimes scales back, okay, we get to a point and we've just got to try something. So there's that balance there. And I think in all of this, this is what schools, communities really need, is to really start to, take a look at, who is your community and what do you want, right? And how do you move forward? There was a conversation. I can't remember. We had a great conversation after that podcast, by the way. Sometimes I'm like, I wish we just kept recording. But anyway, but there was a comment in there like it used to be, and I don't know if this was on. You can help me out if I remember correctly, but where it was like schools would then go see what other schools were doing or what other communities were doing, right? And that's great, but I have been in school districts, not the one I'm in now, but previous school districts where that's all they would do. And they would
Mm-hmm.
go and they were like, "Oh, what's this school district doing?" or "What's this school district doing?" But they're not really, they're just kind of trying to find the uh, best practice of whatever is
Yeah.
happening in that community, but no one's really understanding the community aspect of it. Like, well, what's different, because we might have a different subset of culture here. We might have different students. We might have different industry or whatever. And if you don't look at that, which is what Kristy was saying, is then it doesn't matter. Like I can take
Yeah.
somebody else's idea and they might be, I'm going to use fishing here, right? They may be fishing for marlin and I'm just looking to catch a bass, right? Like so yeah, I'm going to look at, oh, wow, they caught a lot of marlin. I'm going to do what they do, but try to catch a bass with it. It's not going to work. It's way different, right? It's a weird fishing analogy. I don't know why I was thinking fishing, but maybe it's all the lakes you have up there in Minnesota. So,
Yeah. There are a lot of lakes. The and to that point, like I can bring it to, even to like a a level within that. So one of the school districts around where I live here in Minnesota, they have multiple high schools, and I've subbed at, so like they're technically the same community, okay,
hmm
but on
hmm
different sides of the community,
yep.
and subbing in each of those buildings is wildly different.
Hmm.
Wildly different. They're miles apart. Not that far. It's not across town. And so if one high school wants to do what the other high school's doing, like just because they're not meeting the needs of their students in their even more localized community,
Hmm.
right? And it's interesting. So I've worked in school districts that have multiple high schools, and it's very common in St. Louis, but it's not actually super common up here
Hmm.
in Minnesota. But I it used to be very common for each high school to have like their own schedule and programs and stuff, and then some actuary probably decided that that wasn't some cost analysis. We all need to be on the same page and the
Hmm.
same curriculum at the same time. All the schedules need to be the same. And I get for like busing transportation, like, and you don't have as much flexibility when you're a bigger operation. And that's why, we've talked about this before. The agility and speed at which like a small or rural school district can make change is so much faster than like what is essentially a giant enormous corporation when
Hmm.
you have dozens of elementary schools, half a dozen middle schools and multiple high schools. You just the speed at which you can enact change is much harder.
Yeah.
But you cannot, in my opinion, you cannot do the same thing for all those schools within even the same community
Hmm.
because it's that localized. What could be on the quote unquote the north side of town is different than the west and the east and the south. And you're just missing opportunities by, I think, streamlining things too much. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
if this is kind of off topic, but it relates. Like, have you
Hmm.
heard that this idea of color theory in that there are less colors in the world now than back in the day? Like, we're all headed towards gray,
Hmm.
and it's because the bright bold colors people just decided like are too much or too difficult to manufacture or keep up or whatever. But that's what I feel like. We can't like go gray with education. It's funny because Kristy was like, I like to find the gray. A different kind. Okay.
Sure.
Different kind there. Like we need to be bold about our color choices and what we choose for our local community because it's different than the community down the road. And if we're always chasing like what it's like keeping up with the Joneses, I don't think that is the right way to approach education. Like find what your community needs and find what color suits yours, even if it's not gray,
Hmm.
and go for it.
Yeah. No idea. And I think the way that Chrissy was using gray was like try to find a gray area of, what we were talking about seed time, I believe. And she was like, well, what can we do within that conversation of what the state allows that we can kind of maybe manipulate a little bit. But you're right, because about that, I have worked in multiple school districts where there are more than one high school. I'm in one right now. I think they're pretty different in the way that there's not a lot of the same things. There's a lot of some things that are different. There are some differences, but I have worked in different school districts where the school district itself has two or three or four different high schools in, and one school district that is quote unquote high academic performing will actually make the other maybe one or two or three even sometimes a lower performing school, a lower, I guess, like economically viable school because of everybody's looking at this academic piece over here and trying to apply it across the board. You get school boards to do this. So I think that, in that case, when you're looking at like an edu vitality of like Christy, you can actually put these things into place at a district level that allows each school to be personalized for each school, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
your point, that allows more color. right? That allows different areas where people can do some different things and in the same school community, right? So in Illinois, it's not unlikely that there's going to be more than one high school, especially in the suburbs. Obviously, in Chicago public, that's a thing, but you have, yeah, there are high school districts, or there's sometimes upends of five, six, seven high schools in a district. And sometimes they're in the same suburb and sometimes they're crossing suburbs. But I have been in a district where everybody went to the golden egg of academia and they try to
Mhm.
do everything there across the board. And it was gray and it was damaging
Yep.
to at least a few of the schools. And what that means is it's damaging to those students by holding them back from opportunities and experiences that they could have had should we have written this into maybe a district school board policy or whatever you want to call it, to where we are allowing this. You have to allow that flexibility. And that's very interesting because I think you know that's something that sometimes you can't control. However, as an admin, sometimes you've got to go with what happens. But I think it's worth that conversation to really have and to be bold and to say this our community with this school within this community is different than that one, and here's how. And we really need to like step up. And Kristy honestly is that person that can translate some of this stuff. But regardless of that, that I have seen students, and it's heartbreaking. I think you said this after Isaac's or Liam's, where we love to see students, especially as educators, just thrive and take opportunities. There was a quote somewhere where you put that out there so eloquently. I can't do that, see, but when that stops happening because of policies of a ginormous school corporation, teachers get burnt out and leave. Period. And then who's left in the dust? Students and families and that part of the community. So that's why I think, it's really cool to look at this is I like, and this was kind of an off camera conversation that we had with Kristy, was I really like that will it doesn't make sense not to do it. And I
Mhm.
like that look. Like what happens to our students if we do not change? What happens to our community if we do not change? And if you
Yep.
look on her Edu Vitality stuff, she has stuff where students, and that was off camera, where one of her students, previous people, not her students, but in said it's a great place to maybe raise a family, but not a great place to live, or something like that. So that your kids are telling you this. So I get really, really emotional about this because I have been in those quote unquote low performing schools in a
Yeah.
system, and they are getting robbed because of policies. And this is where I'm like, this is where I just started in the classroom, right? And for you educators, I just started doing things myself. And guess what? It's hard work. You're going to have to
Mhm.
work longer than your union hours. You're going to have to go out into the community and do these things, and you're going to have to do, but you can. You can. It just takes one thing, one trash can that, Kristy was talking about. Go talk to a parent and just say, hey, I'm struggling to do this in my curriculum. Do you know somebody that is in this industry or around this industry or in this community that can help me do it? And then just build one thing, one lesson. That's where it starts. And it is awesome when you do it, though.
It's so awesome. Like I was thinking about her the grates that she was talking about, how the kids like helped design, manufacture, put around the trees because the wood chips were just spilling all over. And I'm thinking about all of these um woodworking or engineering classes, not even the entrepreneurial ones, but they're doing design challenges in class to teach them engineering principles. And yes, they are getting carts to go over ramps and or unwind a string and whatnot. And like there is a place for design challenges and learning design thinking and working on a team. But like, okay, once you've done level one and you've got potentially three more levels, why can't the design challenges be to design stuff around the community?
Hmm.
We've got
Hmm.
these resources, and then I'm sure there are businesses that would fund the the supplies for
Hmm.
them to then 3D print or work with a manufacturing company to produce what they come up with. But how cool would that be for students to be like, yeah, I made those grates that went around the trees that help beautify our public spaces around.
Hmm.
And I I just know that that leaves a mark. And I'll go back to Sylvester Chisholm's episode when he was talking about, you know, I believe it was South Dakota,
Hmm.
and the kids were building houses. What if you went and like came back to that community and you like lived in one of those houses?
Hmm.
You would feel such a sense of pride.
Hmm.
Or if you knew someone. And, you know, to your point about it's like chasing uh some golden apple in education. Like we think that, oh, high test scores and number of kids going to college is the end all be all. And so if this one school is getting praised for that, great, nothing wrong with it. Like, but then don't make another school that is doing really good things in different ways that maybe don't get praised. Like, wow, this school has a phenomenal music program, and like they are sending all these musicians out. Or I don't know, like maybe another school does have a really trade focused, and they have a lot of kids that are in PSEO, or they're doing more internship type work, culinary or cosmetology, or I don't know what it could be. But maybe those kids aren't going to college, but they're going into the trades. And we don't need to make one school like the other school. Well,
Hmm.
like that's where I'm like, you could lose out on so much richness if we don't look for how do we uplift the school and what they're already doing, rather than being like, oh, well, you're not doing this, so
Hmm.
therefore you're a failure, or made to feel like a failure.
Yeah.
We don't need that. There's so many gifts and talents in every community, and it's about figuring out what those are and building on them, and not trying to put a square peg in a round hole when it comes to, I think, boxing kids, or making them go a certain direction that may or may not fit that community, that set of students, that culture.
Hmm.
And I just see so many benefits in figuring out, well, what will make this community uh grow and feel like this richness and depth. Um and it's probably not, for the majority of communities, a federal or state level list of items
Hmm.
that they need to know about biology, math, history, and grammar.
Hmm.
Just saying.
Right.
Probably not. Probably
Look, there's plants everywhere, right? I mean, there you go. There's wastewater, there's all these things. And we had this conversation before, like on the different areas where science and the environment and all this different things come into play. I definitely math, structure, engineering, all this stuff. It's all around us. So no matter how big or small your community is, you have these things. And I one of the things that I do on the side, not a lot of people know this, but I mentor students, and I've had some long-standing students that I've mentored. And one student in particular, he is going into his junior year of college, and I've mentored him through, and I guess it's been junior year of high school, right? And it's a great conversation. And the reason I mentor, because I get to be the mentee as well, right? So
mm-hmm.
I get to learn from what they're doing at the next level. This young man is going into IT, and IT right now is going through a change, right? AI, and it's an interesting differentiation of, it used to be, hey, up here was IT, and now jobs are going away or transitioning or whatever.
Hmm.
Regardless of that, one of the conversations we just had before recording this podcast is um, a project, and he's working on three projects, and one of them was for a very big technology company, um, and it was called a recommendation plan. Right. And I really like this because this kind of bounced off of what Kristy was saying of going into the neighborhood and seeing, what needs to happen. So it was basically like how users can benefit on this platform better. You get to choose an area of what you think, and you come up with a hypothesis, and then you do you comb for data through using Python and all different kinds of things. Then you build the presentation, and then you present it, right? That right there can be a community thing. Like I want, like if you can just one day field trip a kid out or a class out, walk them through your town area or city area or wherever, and say, I want you guys to look around and well, frankly, what pisses you off? What would you change? And then go. There it is, right? And you can plug in math, science, English, history, all this stuff in there because that's in the research. It's in, I think that's what Kristy is saying. So that's what I learned. And we're actually going to look at different ways to build internships off of what my mentor slash I'm being mentored by him as well, at the collegiate level. So we can do this at the high school level and maybe even younger, right? So to Kristy's point, it's I would love to see, and if you're a leader in education, and maybe one of your early PDs, um, give space, give that challenge to educators is what do you want to do? And guess what? Maybe you have to set a budget. It's $200 or whatever per educator or whatever, and go find that money. That's your job. But like, what would you do? Like, and you're gonna weed out right away. You're gonna get the Debbie Downers and the Donnie Downers. The people like, oh, blah, blah, the kids do this and that. Whatever. Push them aside. Who are you going to be your game players on this? And you probably already have some. And guess what? That's how you build. And if your administration is not going to do that, and or you're rotating, like we were saying, and you're an educator, go seek out, have conversations, maybe go into the teacher staff lunchroom, but don't crab about things. Ask who's doing some crazy stuff here. Like who's doing some crazy stuff? Who's breaking rules here? Just stand up and say it, and people will talk, right? And then you gravitate and you're like, so just like you're saying, say maybe this school has a great band program or this school has a great art program. Great. What are you doing that makes it great, and how are you kind of bending the rules a little bit, and then bring it back to your class? Because
Mm.
inevitably we do have a lot of autonomy as educators, right? We do. And yeah, you're going to piss a few people off, whatever, right? Play the game to go through your observations and evaluations and stuff like whatever. But I go back to that quote that Kristy said, where we both, Allie and I, if you're watching when we're interviewing people, we both look down. And that quote was, it's hard to kill something when it's always in your face. And it's awesome, right?
Mm.
And guess what? That's how every single teacher or curriculum or area of learning in a school gets to a point to where everybody's like, oh, that program's awesome.
Hmm.
It doesn't happen overnight, and it starts with you guys. And that's why I get so excited with Kristy, because she just cuts through the fat of both the planning and the action, puts them together, brings a community together. I'm super excited about the Edgy Vitality and bringing an economic development. This is no longer just an academic thing, folks. This is an
Hmm.
economic challenge of cities, towns, rural areas, suburban, all these different areas in the United States. This is a challenge, and this is where it's going to go, and this is where the answers can be, should you be able to be bold enough to make some moves here. And Kristy was the first one to in our conversation to bring that out. So I'm super excited about where that goes. But definitely, we got some more speakers coming up as well. So
We do. We're really just seeking out, you know, people who are innovating around education to kind of as Kristy said, like erase the borders and the boundaries of education because our students are telling us that it's confusing and we don't like the cliff that happens after um, school, whether, whatever school level they go to.
Hmm.
I mean, when Abby and Lindsay were on and just hearing, it's saddening to feel like colleges may just want you, and high schools I'm sure too, they want your success as a number.
Hmm.
Do they really care about where you go or what you do? And that's where the opportunity for local communities are going to make a direct impact on young people because they're looking for a place to feel connected and have capital in where they are planting their feet, their young feet. They are so looking for a space where they can find purpose. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because Kristy's last episode that we had her on a year ago was on our series of like, what is the purpose of education?
Yep.
And she shared again what she shared last year is that people want a space to learn and grow and feel like what they're doing matters. And it's such an opportunity for community leaders to partner with schools. It shouldn't be radical. It should it the school should be this hub that can really create the connections. And if you're struggling with the financial part, I will say Kristy, one of the many things that Kristy's great at knowing because of her work at the Iowa State Department or Department
Hmm.
of Education or both, she's worked in higher levels, right? Is realizing where the funding can be. Like, don't let that be the limitation. There are grants and there are funding opportunities for this type of work because of vitalization and revitalization of communities is a huge push right now. Um, we don't want crumbling infrastructure. We don't want crumbling communities.
Hmm.
So it's going to take time. I think back to like the camp example that I shared a few weeks ago.
Right.
And going back to a place after 20 years and seeing all of the investment and the beautification of that space, it brought back all the warm, fuzzy feelings of camp. And
Hmm.
I think, if you've been away from home and whatnot, and you come back and everything is just full of life and beautiful, like you're gonna remember all the good parts, right? Like if something feels run down or hasn't been taken care of, you might have some nostalgia, but that's where it's going to rest. You're not going to necessarily want to stay there or plant your feet there because you're going to be like, oh, well, it used to be good.
Hmm.
And then you go to this like, oh, well, it was not like it is now and it's growing and it's thriving. And so that's why I think Kristy's work is so good is because she's looking at like, what would it look like to invest in this community, not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but we're talking 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Let's really think about how are we making this a place that people want to be in that time frame.
Yep. Love it. And you know what? Time will tell. We're going to look at this at a grander schedule next, grander, I guess, platform next week. We've got a great guest, and it's a bigger program than kind of one-offs, but it'll be an interesting connection and somebody who is doing some really interesting work across the state of Virginia. The Commonwealth. I like how they call it the Commonwealth. That's interesting. They don't call it Illinois the Commonwealth. It's just like Illinois, right? I don't know. Do they do that in
Right.
Minnesota? I don't know.
No, I'm not, I was like, I like that. We should have like something in Minnesota where,
All
the
right.
Great Lakes, but
Yeah,
the
Commonwealth
Commonwealth
goes all the way back to the 17 and 1600s. So I don't know if we can, the Great
can't use
Lakes.
it.
So, but we have some great guests coming up, and these are people to really connect with and to really make those moves and become inspired. We are at the beginning of a quote unquote traditional school year, if you're not year round, and you know what? Take these as a master class. Take these as something to give you that kickstart, give you the allowance to disrupt education a little bit. So, for Alli, Dahl. I'm Peter Hostrawser. We'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education podcast. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and guess what? Share it out to somebody. We like to change some things up, and if you're angry and you don't know where to go, share this out and say, hey, what do you think? We'll talk to you later.
Thank you for joining us on the Disrupt Education podcast. If you found today's conversation valuable, we'd appreciate it if you subscribed and shared it with someone on their own learning journey. We're also excited to announce our new career coaching services, where you can work directly with Peter and Alli to clarify your path and showcase your unique value. Visit disrupteducationpodcast.com to learn more. Until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep disrupting education.